Hello and good evening to everyone, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining me right here on Solomon's Temple. This is Solomon's Temple, where we get to discuss just different issues. But at the top of it all, we try to get God's perspective to different issues. And we ask ourselves the hard questions. Sometimes we don't even have the answers, and it's fine. So if you haven't subscribed, please help me subscribe to this YouTube channel, Solomon's Temple, and you can get to access other videos also. Well, this month in South Africa is Women's Month, and every month of August we celebrate women. We look at history, we look at the achievement of women, we look at what women have been through, and also as men we look at how can we help women to take their rightful place in society. Women have quite a lot. God has given them quite a lot, and God has blessed them. And I think sometimes society do not appreciate them enough, or sometimes they play second fiddle, which is not the key, which is not actually how it should be. When God created a man and a woman, they're supposed to be equal. That's just the way that it is. They have different roles, they have different giftings, they have different strengths, different weaknesses, but before God and before the Constitution, we're all supposed to be equal. So tonight, I'm going to be talking to three wonderful ladies who are going to be sharing their experiences, because tonight we're looking at the issue of women in education, especially in the continent of Africa, where when you look at women and education, there is some sort of backwardness when it comes to that. We haven't achieved a lot compared to other continents like Latin America or Asia or Europe, obviously. So we need to be able to use stories like this to encourage other women, and that's what my guests are going to do tonight. And please help me welcome my guests in the studio today. I have close to me up there is she's in the process of becoming a doctor. She is Kenelwe. She is with me here. Kenelwe Sibola. So she is. She's going to tell you a little bit about what she does. So I don't even want to begin to give your bio a little bit. And also we have Dr. Puti Sipuru. She's into music. She's a doctor of music. And we also have Dr. Sibongile Vilakazi. She is a doctor in, sometimes it's like, is it a bit of marketing, developmental what? You know,
organizational development.
Organizational development, and that's what we are going to be looking at and to talk about it individually. But ladies, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yes. So we're looking at women in education, but before we even get there, let's just, look at each and every one of you. Let's start from you, Dr. Sibongile Vilakazi. Sibongile, just tell us a little bit about yourself, basically, growing up. Were you born in a school? When your mother gave birth, was it in a school or was it in a hospital?
Unfortunately, it was in a hospital.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how, your kind of family you come from, and who you were like growing up as a child.
No, thank you so much, Solomon, for this opportunity. Sometimes just to tell our stories, it's like it's an honor to do that. Most people don't get to tell their stories. So thank you for this opportunity. So as a child growing up, I come from a very small town, Patriarchy. A lot of people, when I mention my small town, people don't know where that is. Yeah, it's between KZN and Swaziland. Literally 20 minutes away from the border of Swaziland and 20 minutes away from KZN. Small town. When I grew up there, it was one of those godforsaken towns. People were just, social ills, alcohol. Those were the normal things that I grew up watching, and my dream literally was to leave. I dreamt of leaving the town because people who had left were the ones who came back successful. if you stayed there, chances are your life wouldn't amount to too much. The good jobs that people were doing were teaching, nursing, police. Like the typical jobs. That's what people who were doing better than the rest were doing. So my dream literally was I needed to leave the place. Yeah, my family were very poor. We were one of those that in the streets. We were the poorest actually in the street where we lived. Yeah, so it was, that life that you live that just says chances are you will not amount to much. But fortunately, when my dad passed on when I was 6 years old, and I had older siblings. I'm the last born. My brother literally took over and became the father of the house. He was doing matric when my dad passed on, and it was very clear that he needed to stop. If he needed to start working, he had to find a job and take care of us. It was very clear for him. At 17 years old, he went out. Thank God, because he found a good job. He started working for Sasol, and Sasol took care of its employees. They sent you to school. It was a good job. So yeah, I started there, and first salary started taking care of us immediately. And because of him, and I was one of those kids at school who I was very smart. Like I was known for being a smart child. Like I was just good at books for some reason. So it was clear that my path would have to go academic route very early on. So, and him realizing that, for instance, in the school that where I was no longer challenged. When you get all the trophies, whenever they've got a trophy that they're doing for this subject or the other, I was just taking everything. So my brother realized that I wasn't being challenged. Then because he had left PhD for Secunda to work for Sasol there, then he decided to bring me along and find me a better school that would challenge me. So the rest, then we'll talk about it later. But yeah, that's I come from a Christian home, by the way. We grew up in church, literally. My dad, he wasn't a pastor, but he was a preacher. And so my childhood was in church, and so that's where my faith actually comes from. That I was raised knowing that my answer is with God, which really helped me even after I had left home. The grounding was there. I found myself finding a church even at varsity. But yeah, so my family background is I'm that person. I come from small town. Family background is church background. Yeah, very close knitted family.
That's good. Look at you now, from the poorest in the street to a PhD.
Yeah. Look at God.
Look at God. Only God can do that. That's an amazing story. Dr. Putin, sometimes I've seen your photos, and I've seen you with your parents and how you celebrate them. So I'm sure you definitely are another closely knitted family.
Definitely. I was born in a hospital.
Not by a piano or by a keyboard.
No. Definitely not. So I was born in Soweto, Middleland, Soweto, and around the age of 5, we moved to Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape, and that's where I was raised. I too was raised in a Christian home. My dad is a businessman. My mom is a school principal. So I should have known that I'd end up where I am right now. But yeah, I grew up in a really closely knit family. I have 3 brothers, so I was always the unique one. But for me, my story is a bit different in that I grew up in a privileged family. I'm not sure how my parents did it, but we were privileged, but we were not aware that we were privileged. And simply because of just the way my parents lead their lives, their habits with money, the type of people they are, I think they raised us so well. And like you're saying, that's why I will celebrate them until Jesus comes. and I went to school in PE. I started playing in the worship team when I was in PE. I think I was 9 years old at the time. When we moved to Joburg, I went to the National School of the Arts. And I think that's where the career in music started to materialize, But that's a really brief background of, my early life. So I grew up in a Christian home, started music lessons really young, and I have been blessed with a phenomenal family, phenomenal parents.
That's good to hear and good to know that. And Kenewe, I know you are from Pretoria.
Yes, of course. I grew up in Garankuwa. I was born in Garankuwa, actually, in a hospital where my mom worked. So that's a privilege. So when I was 10, we moved to the Orchards after my parents got divorced. So I'm second of 4 sisters. So trust me, middle child issues. I'm very stern about what I want. I was the child who said to my mom, I don't want this doll that doesn't look like me. So my mother had to find a brown doll that looked like me. I didn't want to be touched by male doctors. So my mom had to travel to the next township to get me to see a doctor who was a female doctor. So I kind of grew up kind of knowing what I wanted and watching a mom that would pray throughout the night, because after a divorce, you're quite broken, right? And there are things that she desired, and she would pray, and I would listen to her praying in the corridor while I was studying. And I realized that prayer changes a lot of things. But in my family, the women in my family are educated. They're mostly nurses and one teacher. And I realized how different their lives were from my friends whose moms were not as educated. So if they got divorced, then they were stranded. And for me, education became a thing of, this is how you survive. This is how you take a level up from what you have currently. This is how you can take a generation into a different direction, because you have this education that allows you to experience like an extra job. So my mom had an extra job. And as children, we watched her study. I mean, I remember with our last sister, she would put the child on a continental pillow on top of the table and study.
Sure.
So that for me became the basis of education is such a big thing for us as young women. And that's how we transform our lives.
That's quite amazing. And you see, there's quite a couple of people that would say, look, just like Dr. Sibongile shared earlier, it's like, I was always that smart one. And there's quite a lot of people that would say, well, you 3 ladies, you have that savvy, you have your education savvy, it's easier for you. You had the love, or you were gifted naturally, God gifted you with that, but it's not always the case with everybody. But for you guys, was it right from day one? And what were some of the challenges that's like maybe through primary school or high school, or even your first degree that you encountered, just so people would know that you also encountered problems, that is not, it could be direct from what you were studying, or dealing with certain subjects or certain courses that was just, giving you some sort of a tough time, or it could be, okay, I'm smart, I could learn, but financially, I'm not really getting it, or relationally, or I faced some sort of depression. I went through some sort of mental challenges at one point. Did any of you go through that?
I can tell you the story of how when I left PhD for Secunda, I moved from a township school to a multiracial school. And I moved from being the boffin of the school, couldn't be touched by anyone, to being the person who was at the brink of failing. Why? Because I couldn't speak English. I was in a black school, studied everything in my mother tongue, and the first time
Swati, Zulu?
Yeah, Zulu. The first time I came up, The first time I came across a white person, like, and sit next to a white person in class, was when I moved. And it was a traumatic experience, like absolutely traumatic. I lost self-esteem, confidence, everything, and because I couldn't articulate myself mainly. But fortunately, because I guess I had a strong grounding of accounting and maths. And because now I didn't need to express myself to perform in those two subjects, I was doing extremely well. I was one of the top students in those two subjects, which was strange for the teachers, because that was the two subjects that the people who were not the smartest in class would fail, and then they'll pass everything else, whereas I was failing everything else and passing those two. And what it was odd, that what's going on here. So it allowed the teachers to give me a chance, actually, and pay attention instead of writing me off. But and having the support of my brother as well, and he really tried. But I can tell you, when I got to standard 8, I don't know what grade is that these days. It was standards during my time. When I got to standard 8, I had really, like, I started acting up, because it was like extremely challenging. So, like, I became one of the girls you find in the bathrooms smoking, with the white kids. Like, I got to matric, it was even worse, because at least in standard 8, standard 9, I was still passing, but not to the level that I was used to, which was starting to eat at my self-esteem. And then when I got to matric, it got worse. Like, I actually failed for the first time. I failed in March, June, the prelims. And literally, I had to wake up after the prelims to realize that, no, I'm failing. And again, it was because of my brother's support that I pulled through. So I understand very well what it means to struggle in something and get yourself out of that. So it hasn't always been easy. There's certain circumstances that everybody finds themselves in, and that you literally have to pull yourself out of that. And for me, that experience, it taught me, because I literally spent I had a month to study something that I needed to study. We had studied for the whole year. And because I wasn't paying attention, I was playing, I had given up on myself, basically. And I literally had a month, and I managed to study everything and pass really well in that month, after I had failed, like, literally the whole year. So that taught me that anything is possible. The moment you put your mind into something, whatever it is, you can do it. And that experience, for me, it carried me, and it still carries me to this day, that it doesn't matter how the odds may seem against you. Once if you decide, all you need is a decision. And if you make that decision, you are halfway there. You're already done.
The challenges that you faced definitely was trying to stop you from getting to where you are today. It's like
Exactly.
there's every reason to not be where you are today.
Exactly.
Some people might face the same challenge, but they will handle it differently. And for you, Dr. Puti, I mean, you are a cheese girl who didn't even know that you were a cheese girl, right?
Well,
Because
yeah, that's a
parents
way to
are
put it.
models and model parents. But obviously, even in spite of some of the privileges that was there, that your parents made possible, I'm sure you faced one or two other challenges yourself.
No, definitely. I think similar to Dr. Spongile, I loved learning. I absolutely loved learning. I loved studying. I loved being questioned. I loved doing well. And that was something that I maintained, throughout school. But growing up in a sheltered way, I think that sort of started to show when I got to university, because all of a sudden you're exposed to this new life. And the challenge sometimes with being raised in a sheltered home or in a Christian home is that we don't talk about, the challenges that happen in the real world. So you'll find that no one talks about, hey, people go to clubs at university, people drink, they do this and this and that, you know. So obviously in my undergraduate years, you found that we'd be here. For some reason, despite what was happening the night before, I was always in class, you know. I was always there. We'd always go to class, go and recover in the practice rooms, go back to the next class, you know. But for me, I think the big shock came when I failed a module. I've never failed anything in my life. But and the thing is, I'll never forget it because I received my report and it said 988. So I thought 98.8%, you know. And then I looked down and I saw the codes, and I think that was a huge wake-up call for me. Obviously, I had to retake that class the next year, and I made sure, you know, when you make sure that you show them that I was not supposed to fail this, you know. But for me, there were also just some modules that did not resonate with anything that I'd done before. But I think the biggest thing you learn, especially when you pursue postgraduate studies, for example, is you have to adapt, you know, and that's I think one of the biggest things for me. Adapt, you know, you can do terribly, but I'm one person that always reflected on what my lecturers told me. So if I didn't do as well as I would have liked to, I was that student that went through every single comment, noted it, went on to the next thing and tried, you know. So I think for me it was the lifestyle change and shift that I was drawn to, you know, that I had to pull myself away from. And also from that, I had to realize that the people that I have around me are so important, you know, because they'll really, they'll influence the trajectory of your life. So those are the lessons that I had to learn earlier rather than right now.
Later, yes.
Yeah.
And for you, Kenelwe, for you, how is the ride like? I mean, you are halfway through your PhD now with Rhodes University. How's it been, you know, going through? I mean, when I look at you and you know, and the fact that you are into radio, you know, you are like a scientist, and that the fact that you're a producer, like you know. Like you're a producer, you produce what? Afternoon Drive show now? Is it the same? You're still on the
afternoon. I produced the Afternoon Drive with Joy and Joseph on 702. But how I got into radio was actually at WITS. You know, Voice of WITS. That's how I joined radio, and that's where Prime Media found me, and that was in my honors year. I think to share a bit about the struggles in my first year. I think in high school I was very quiet. I wasn't as talkative as I am right now. In my first year, the first few months, I met a group of friends that were really awesome. And I thought, wow, university is amazing. But none of them were studying the sciences. So I'd be hanging out with them when I'm supposed to be studying all this work. And then in March, I got 50%. Oh, Lord, that was the worst experience ever. And I had to turn it around so that by June, the mark that my mother sees has turned around. So I stopped going out. I literally studied in the middle of the night. I remember my roommate would find me at 2 a.m. eating Weet-Bix because I'm trying to stay awake and trying to catch up on all the work that I hadn't done, you know. And the journey thus far, one, I'm a microbiologist by training. So now entomology, completely different sector, completely different science. I mean, I've had to do water ecology 101, literally watch slides from different universities to actually get myself up to speed. Secondly, it requires you to be in nature. I'm a Black girl. I'm supposed to stand in a dam. So we swim for survival. Now I'm a stand in a dam where I can't see the bottom, you know? So already I'm just like, here I'm standing in water. I can't see, I can hear things move. And that's the worst thing. You can hear it. And you're just like, oh my goodness, I have to do this. But the other thing is that being a Black woman, you still have the privileges of saying to the groundsmen in the estate that you're working, Ish Papa, and they come with you because also they see a daughter, right? So if I'm a bit fearful, they come with me because they're used to standing in the water. They're used to engaging the dam, right? And the other thing is that there's a suit I wear, it's called fishing waders. They are not made for women, okay? Secondly, they're not made for Black women with curves. So it took me moving to another city to find a pair of waders that actually fit me, but the shoe size is like a size 10. Right? So I'm like walking around with these things like I'm a clown, but they're not designed for you. They're not designed for women anyways, you know? So you're already in a field that doesn't have the equipment for you. Right? So you have to wrap your head around, there's no equipment that's designed for me as a woman. Right? And then secondly, you have to learn new skills. I mean, I got to one of the land sites and the owner there was like, okay, so you're going to release your insects? Here's a canoe, here's a paddle. Good luck. And then I had to say to his groundmen, Abbot Kingston, I don't know how to canoe. And that man taught me how to canoe. So in a space of 3 months, then I could canoe by myself. But it's the fact that you have to learn new skills and then wrap your head around the theory, which is a lot. It's a lot. And then have a passion and a drive to learn a new science. Because that's not, for me, I'm a lab person. If you talk about coronavirus, I'm like the people, yay, we've got a pandemic, you know? There's something that, because when you think about it, you're like, okay, so now we can do more research. So now there's jobs for people that are in the molecular sciences, you know? And there's an opportunity for us to share knowledge. But now I'm in a different field where the people are comfortable with seeing a crocodile. I'm not. You know, but the journey has been great because my supervisors have been great. One thing you need to get is amazing supervisors. You need people that understand that life happens. People that understand that because I'm a full-time student, because I'm closer to the dam and also have a full-time job, they understand that there are limitations about what you can do and what you can deliver.
Yeah, that's true. And you're really giving some very good you know, like principles there for people to look out for, and also things to watch out when you get into that place, just to be able to make sure that you surround yourself with just the right elements for you to be able to function the way that you should. Now, you know, first, you know, I'm going to go around each of you quickly. And in case you just join us, we're talking about women in education. I have a great women here getting their PhD before 40, and one of them is still in the process. She's gonna and we're just talking about the importance from different elements, and just listening to you guys also, there's just so much that I could like, you know, just like you're talking about, like, look, this thing doesn't fit me, the shoes doesn't fit me, you know, it's more like, so actually women like you have never been into this place, you know, or the scarcity of women like you in this field. That's why there is no provision for even, you know, what to put on, you know, and that's the reality. And it's not like there's no women that are not interested in going in there. Maybe they never really got the opportunity or got the drive, got the support that they need. So I would just want to encourage you, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I would appreciate it. And also, if you have comments, questions that you want to post, I see some comments and whatever coming through already. Comments that you want to make to these ladies or about your experiences, please do. If you have a question, please do put it out there, just so I'll put it up, you know, before the ladies and see what we could do with it. But for you, Puti, well, why music? You know, take us through your journey. I know you went through the National School of Arts, which is obviously, you know, a very arty, creative space. But why music? And not just from, it didn't just end at the School of Arts. you took it all the way to having a degree in musicology. Is that it? A doctorate in musicology?
Yes. So when I was at the National School of the Arts, someone phoned the school and said that they were looking for a female pianist and a Black female pianist. So naturally, there was only one of us. So I got the gig. And from then on, I was 16 then. I was traveling the world literally within the first 3 to 6 months of that. So half of my high school life was spent going from one continent to the next. And I just found so much pleasure in it, because before then I wanted to be a lawyer the one year, the next year I wanted to be in advertising. And I think I was thrilled by the whole idea of the industry, the fact that you get to make music, you get to do this thing that is fun and that you love, and you get to these beautiful places and you get paid for it, you know. And eventually when I finished school, the only thing that I wanted to do was music and absolutely nothing else. I did not really have a second option. Wow. And once I started studying music, certain things, I became aware of certain things. The first, how we were the other, right? So we were definitely the other, in terms of color, in terms of language. It's okay if you're black and you fail, it's a normal thing. But beyond that, the first thing that I saw was there was nobody that looked like me. There was just nobody that looked like me. And by the time I got to third year, and once I really started internalizing the different components of the course, because a lot of people assume that you do music, therefore you play piano all day. It is definitely not that, you know. And once I got to third year, I realized that this is where I need to be, you know, for the next person that looks like me to realize that there is a place for someone in my skin, with my hair, with my accent, you know, or someone that comes from a similar background, you know, to see themselves in that space. So, and I think I was having a live a few weeks ago, and I said, when I knew that I needed to do what I'm doing now was when it went beyond the hype. So it wasn't about the gigs and the attention and the money, but it was about creating change and having an influence. And I think one of the biggest things for me was the content of the curriculum. I felt there were a lot of things that I desired that I did not necessarily get out. So that really fueled my postgraduate studies, because I feel that South African voices are often silent in literature related to South African jazz. So that's really that I wanted to go into. And I think that really fueled my postgrad studies, and that fueled the research I did then and the research that I'm doing right now, and just the approach I take as a lecturer and the way I deal with students as well, because I never want to see people do the things that I experienced, and I never want people to be silent about things in the way that I was silent. I want to tell them that it's not right. It's not okay for someone to call you a baboon. It's not okay for a student to come up to you and look you in the face in front of other students and tell you in your position because you're Black. You know, so for me, there's a lot of undoing that we are doing, you know. And for me, I mean, I've been in school for so long, so I think the biggest thing for me was really just undoing things that I'd seen, that I'd kept inside. And for me, getting that, my whole dream is to finish the PhD before 30, get it done, and be allowed to speak at the tables where our voices have been silenced for so long.
That's quite great. I mean, you brought quite a lot of elements that I was actually wanting to talk about it. You know, being, you know, when you talk about South Africa, there are certain spaces that racism or the issue of color is an issue. You know, the issue of gender is an issue, and it's a reality. You know, and we really have to talk about these things. You know, just so people like you that have gone before, you know, the younger ones come in. Experiences like this could be shared, and also a lot of people could also learn from it, and that's important. There are comments that are coming in already. We have a comment from Sibongi Seni. Okay, she's also a doctor, right? She's the one that got away. She's somewhere in Makanda right now. You know, she's into IT. You know, she's an IT. She's into innovation, and the flip side of her is she's also a DJ. Can you believe it? No, she sent a comment to encourage you guys. She said, "We stand brilliant. We stand brilliant young doctors before 40. Big ups. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you, Solomon's Temple. Hashtag Women in Education." So it's good to see us celebrating each other. Now, for you, as Sibongile, how was it for you? Were you in your first degree through your master's and your PhD? Were you still searching, or it was just more like a straight thing? This is what I want to do. How did that journey come to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, when I started, I wanted to be a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and I went through first year psychology, and thank God, because I got exposed to what was the AIDS center. I mean, at the time when I was studying, HIV/AIDS was a big thing in this country. We were trying to find solutions. We were all scared that it will wipe all of us. So I got involved to volunteer. There was an AIDS center at the University of Pretoria. So I decided that let me start volunteering there and do different programs. So there was outreach programs where we went to communities and just to see how people who were living with HIV and how they were living and how we could assist them where they needed help. It was still a stigmatized illness at the time.
Yeah.
So volunteering at the hospitals, orphanage homes. There was quite a lot of children who were orphans then because of the disease. So I started doing all of that, got involved with that, and I realized that, oh my God, I wasn't that person. I wasn't the person who can sit with somebody's pain and hold it with me. I couldn't deal with it. I would come back to rest extremely exhausted emotionally. So and thank God for that. Thank God for that participation, because then I started questioning myself that then what else can I do in the field of psychology still, because counseling people was not going to be my thing. And then also dealing with people with pathologies was also not going to be my thing. I just couldn't handle it. And then I got exposed to research psychology, that I could do that and work wherever I needed to work. I didn't have to work with illnesses. I could also work with corporates and work in companies. And so and then obviously that route became attractive for me. And that's when then after my honors, I decided to pursue my master's in research psychology. And then I did that. But throughout my experience at varsity, just outside my studies, I went to Tekis, University of Pretoria, extremely racist institution. So, and those experiences of racism, and it was terrible actually, because it was my first real experience of racism. It was really terrible. But because I had come from a multiracial school, I was used to hanging out with white kids and I had white friends. So I became the person who was easy to deal with, I guess, by other white students on campus. And for instance, I got voted into all these committees, like I was in the House Committee, which was a prestigious thing at the University of Pretoria. So yeah, and also my previous experience in high school of knowing when somebody can't do well simply because they can't express themselves. It gave me a different way of looking at fellow students. And because suddenly I could see myself in them. I could see those who were quiet in class, not because they were dumb, but because they just couldn't express themselves. They came from similar backgrounds as mine. And I developed such deep empathy based on that. I had such deep empathy. And I wanted to do something about it. And also then watching, because I started working at the Department of Psychology as an assistant, a student assistant. And then I got an opportunity to be in meetings with lecturers. So we only had 2 Black lecturers, for instance, at the time. And I would watch them in meetings as well and realize that they were going through exactly what I went through in high school. They also were not part of the meetings. They were there, but they were not there. And it bothered me so much that I decided then issues of transformation and fighting for others became me. I became that person, and hence my PhD then became about organizational development, but focusing on change or transformation, how to transform organizations to be more inclusive, either as a business strategy to make sure that you are able to take the business to the next level, or from a people perspective to make sure that you are inclusive as an organization. So it became my thing. Like even now, like issues of transforming whatever spaces that we're in are my biggest passion. And it all started then. It all started, I was just a student, but the environment there forced me, or I don't know if I was planted, I guess it was a calling that it had to come in those ways. So yeah, and that's where now I find myself in the spaces that I'm in, always constantly fighting for people.
Yeah, it's amazing just the journey that you took, and just different journeys for each and every one of you, and it's just so enriching, you know. And I'm sure anyone watching now is just going to be so enriching, watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, and also people that are going to watch much later. But we're going to go for a short break. When we come back, Kenewe, we're going to come on to you, and we're also going to look at the issues of patriarchy, you know, from school classrooms to work. We're going to look at the issues of the role of God, you know, your faith. How did it take you through all of this? Because obviously there has to be your God. And then we're going to look at the issue of romance. Are you guys, what's happening there? You keep studying and studying. What's up? Okay. After the break.
Voluminous no-lie relaxer provides no breakage, no burning, no itching, maintains hair volume, and is safe to use on children.
Is social media even social anymore? Our streams have become billboards instead of meaningful interactions. Our data is being sold to the highest bidder. And then there's cyberbullies, fake news, inappropriate content. It's become a war zone. Do you want a simple and safe way to connect? Introducing Squirrel. Everything you love about social media without the distractions. Squirrel keeps you connected with the people you care about without compromising your data. And Squirrel is invitation only, so strangers and bots will never pollute your social pages. And with 0 ads and no data mining, you can finally love social media again. Create unlimited channels with different people and discover more meaningful connections. Squirrel is also safe for children to use with full parental oversight, and your data is encrypted and guaranteed to never be sold. Love your newsfeed again by controlling your content through your connections. For just 35 Rand per month or 100 Rand for your family, you can have the social media experience you deserve.
Welcome back from the break right here on Solomon's Temple. We're talking women in education. I have lovely, beautiful ladies in the studio here with me talking about their experiences, you know, getting a PhD before 40. And one of them, Kenewe, is on her way to halfway through getting a PhD before 40. This is, you know, something that we have to celebrate, something that we need to really look at again. Education and knowledge has a huge role. Wherever your passion is, you know, it's important for us to be able to look at that and celebrate. So please send us your comments, your questions for these ladies, anything that you want to say. Please keep doing that. And Kenewe, for you, from being a microbiologist to being an entomologist. You know,
Entomologist.
entomologist. So it's, how did it get there? Obviously, these are two, there is two contradictions between the two fields. They're not like together or even that close, similar. I mean, from the lab to the field. How did that journey get you here?
So in my master's, I had an opportunity to do whatever research I wanted. At that point, I worked for WITS as a senior technician for microbiology. And I asked one of my lecturers, so what are you doing? Because I was always interested in bioremediation, and he was working on a bioreactor that would be plugged in at the end of our current wastewater treatment systems, and that would clean the water further. So I got involved in water research. So when being a Praetorian girl driving across the Harties, I realized there was a green plant growing over it. And I kind of Googled, what is this green plant? Like a good scientist, you go and read up on journal articles, and there was this name that kept popping up, Professor Martin Hill, who was at Rhodes. So I reached out to him to say, Prof. Hill, I'm interested in working on Hartebeespoort Dam and dealing with the plant that's growing on top of it. Ideally, I want to see if we could use it for something. But then he said to me, okay, we don't advocate for use, but because legislation in our country says eradicate, that's what we're working on. And that's how I got involved in the water research industry. But touching on what Sibongile said, you know, when I was thinking about universities to go to, Tekkies, being from Pretoria, Tekkies was a no-go zone because being a middle child, I'm feisty. And I know because I'm feisty, I wouldn't have managed to even finish my first degree. So I opted to go to WITS, which was a more English university. However, as you progress, you realize that in second year, you are Black. You know, there's a familiarity that white students have with lecturers that Black students don't have. You know, we still see them as teachers. Like, we have a level of respect. We don't drink with them, you know, so they can't casually discuss a theory that we're not wrapping our head around, you know. And that was a challenge because you can't really voice your opinion. And when you're struggling, you can't just say, hey, buddy, let me know how this works. Right? Because you have to set up a formal appointment and they have to be very formal in how they explain to you, as opposed to when you're sitting in a pub on a Thursday afternoon, the way they explain it is a lot easier, right? Because it's in a language that you can understand, not as formal as when we engage them. And because I had worked after my honors, I started working for WITS. I realized that even as a senior technician, educated by the same people who are now my colleagues, I had to prove that I knew my science. I had to work 5 times harder to be respected for the science. I remember the only lecturer who let me adapt any of their lab work was a guy who was actually my honors supervisor, who I said to him, listen, I've been through this course, this practical and that practical session, they don't work. And this is why I think they don't work. And he, in the first year of me working for WITS, said, do whatever, let me see how it works, right? And because of that, it allowed me to say, I know this system, I know how you educate us, and seeing it from the other side, I realized that there's certain things that don't work for us, right? It doesn't make sense for us. The language doesn't make sense. The science doesn't change, but how you teach it makes a difference because we're a different generation, right? But then it takes you sticking to your guns in one session so that the next guy respects you. So if you do one practical session very well that he allowed you to change, then he'll share it with the other colleagues to say, if she says change something, change it, it works, you know? So that allowed me to then have a voice. But what struck me in my master's year, there was a competition called the Gap Bioscience competition. I needed leave, right? To say, okay, we have executive training. I'm a finalist in this competition and it's a provincial competition. I need leave. How do I say to my supervisor or my current boss that I need leave? The head of school at the time said to me, we've never had a senior technician do anything outside their jobs. So we don't know how to give you leave. So you have to take vacation leave. you know. But to do something that when I got recognized as a finalist, you have to credit the university, you have to credit the department that you work in. Because, you know, if you're in the university, the intellectual property is theirs. Whether you came up with it or not is immaterial.
Yeah, that's such an experience. You know, I mean, you and Sibongile, you have the same University of Pretoria, you know, racial tension and all that. But Puti was able to be there and go through and all through. And obviously, that's why we need people like, you know, Puti there, just so we can see the transformation, the organizational transformation that we spoke about. And I must confess, I also have to confess my own family sin. My wife went to University of Pretoria, and after 2 weeks, you know, she was straight from Dundee, small time Dundee. She went to a bilingual school, Afrikaans and English, and she loved medicine, and she was admitted at the University of Pretoria to study medicine. But she went for just 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, she was like, "No, I can't do it," and she moved to UKZN, where she ended up studying accounting. She's a CA now, you know. So when she tells me, when I heard your stories, actually her story just came to my mind. It's like, okay, you know. But I'm sure there's been a lot of progress in that regard, and there should be more progress in that regard, you know, especially for not just Black people, but also Black women. You know, that is important for us to look at that. But I want to ask you guys, when it comes to the issue of dealing with men and patriarchy, be it directly or indirectly, what have some of you guys faced, and how did you navigate your way around it?
Okay. So the issue of men and patriarchy for me is a very interesting one, because
your volume, we cannot hear you very well, Sibongile.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's going on there. So for me, the issue of how patriarchy and men and how men treat women and all of that, I find it to be like, it's interesting how I relate with it, because I come from a family where my dad we were like 5 girls and 1 boy, and my dad was extremely affirming to us as girls. So yeah, I mean, he told us we're beautiful, combed our hair, you know, walked us to school, and that was at the time where Black men did not do that. So, and he was a stay-at-home dad while my mom was working. So the roles were reversed. So for me, like, a man is a nurturer. So like, I struggle with the concept of men who are abusive, men who prevent women from coming forward and all of that. I really struggle with that picture, because my picture is different. My dad was the one who pushed us forward, and then he passed on, and my brother took over, literally pushed me forward, taught me how to drive, bought me my first bra. Like, he's just been everything like that a man should be, I guess, supportive, protective, nurturing, and all of those things. So I struggle whenever, like, I'm faced with issues of men who have issues. I really struggle to understand what is this about, because for me, my experience of men, at least from an early age growing up, is really different. And as a result, I don't walk into a situation, even with men, thinking I'm female and they are men. I walk into the situation thinking I'm a colleague if we're working together. I never see that, oh, okay, you did that because I'm a woman. Like, I don't have that baggage. Whereas when it comes to racial issues, I have the baggage. Like, I will sit there and be like, oh yeah, you did that because I'm Black. Whereas when it comes to gender, I don't see it that way. But I know it's there, and I hear the stories of women who, like, when they tell their stories, I can hear it, I know it's there, but I have a funny way of relating with it, because it's not my story. It's just an interesting one for me.
Yeah. So for you, it's just because of your experiences where you see yourself as equal. When a man behaves in some sort of, you know, trying to show you he's the man and all that, for you, it's not like you're not doing that because I'm a woman. You're just doing that because you have a problem.
Yeah, you've got a problem, and I will challenge you for the problem, not because you're a
Yes.
man, but
Not because
because
you're
you've
a
got a
woman, you're
problem.
a man, but you have a
Yeah.
problem. So you have to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great mindset. You know, it helps you to eliminate a whole lot of clutter that could engage your mind and get you into a place where you begin to question certain things about you or begin to make decisions that are not. Dr. Puti, have you experienced anything at our lovely University of Pretoria?
I'd have to say it's more in guys, that's my workplace. I'm speaking on behalf of Putisipuru and nobody else. But
Yeah.
I in the music space, definitely.
Yeah.
Patriarchy
You mingle and you engage a lot of men. You go to, you know, you go to a lot of places, isn't it? You do rehearsals, you're backstage, you are in events and all that.
So 90% of the time I'm the only female in the space, but my experience is very similar to Dr. Swingile's. I was raised in an environment where I was not taught that a girl must act this way and a man should act this way. You know, my dad cooked, my mom cooked, my brothers cook, we all did the dishes, you know, and they still hold those very same principles today. I wish I had a different response, but when I experience patriarchy, I become angry. And I mean, I always say Galatians 5 verse 22, help me, Jesus, you know. But I think because I was silent for so long, now I have to counter things. It's, I mean, I walk into a space where it's my band, it's the Putisipuru Quartet, and then I'll walk in and they'll put a microphone there. They'll ask me, where should I set up the microphone? Why must I be the singer? You know, I always share the story of when I was at a particular airport and a very well-known drummer came, and I was with a 4-piece band. There was a drummer, there was a bass player, there was a trumpeter. For him, I mean, the natural instrument that's missing there, the natural, is a piano. But he couldn't figure out what I was doing because I'm not part of cliques. I'm not, you know. So he said, "Oh, are you the singer?" And I was triggered. You know, I was triggered. So, but I think that then I was defeated because, you know, you get to that point where you're angry and then you just get tired because you no longer want to listen. And I just said, I'm the dancer. You know, that was my and in that situation, the bass player went in and you know, he spoke on my behalf. But there are a lot of things in the industry. I mean, in terms of the people that head up organizations, it's males. The people that are in control of a lot of things are males. The fact that people will say things like, "Oh, you know, you're my favorite female pianist." There's no gendering in there should be no gendering. It's either you're good or you are just ordinary, or you know, you're not good at all. But for me, you experience certain things, the way people treat you, the way you walk into a room and you're not taken seriously. And then all of a sudden, when you've got, you know, that lovely acronym in front of your name, all of a sudden, you know, people react. But for me, the industry in itself just privileges the male. You know, we are often sexualized before we respected, you know, because they can get catcalled because that's normal. Men are allowed to do those things. And I think, like Dr. Spangile, those things really upset me. And that's why I speak out, because I was never raised like that. I was never taught to walk into a room and act in a certain way that a woman should act. So as soon as you come at me with that mentality, trust and believe, I will say something, and you will reflect on that for some time. So definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, as you grow older and you get more experience, also for you, Dr. Puti, your influence and your cycle keeps expanding. You're going to meet more and more people, so chances are you're going to face some of these things, you know, because you're meeting more and more people. You started from a very secured cycle, you know, and gradually now it's expanding, and it's good to learn to deal with it, you know, and to you're happy about it, yeah, you show that you're happy about it. It's not a sin. It's just a way of processing it, and really making sure that things are corrected. And Kinewe, you had any experience, from microbiology to just the media space, radio space, where you've always been behind the scene. Juan Joseph always say, always mentioned your name behind the scenes. So there is, and I know some of these back rooms, sometimes it could be a bit challenging.
I think because I'm in two fields that are male dominated, you're going to face patriarchy. The thing is with science is an old white man playground. There aren't that many people that look like you. There isn't support structures for people that look like you, but you always have to do better. That's why I say we expected to perform at 5 times the rate that anybody else performs so that we're taken seriously. So if you want to be taken seriously, you have to take the science seriously. You have to be great at what you do for them to respect you, In the media space, of course, most of the hosts are male. Most of the station managers are male. Most of the programming managers are male. But I'm a producer. We are brains, so they trust you with their mind, with the listeners. They trust you with thinking about what topics to put on, which experts to put on. But it's because when you amplify it, talk radio is about males. So I can think like a man because they enjoy my content, but you're not allowed or given the same room as a man at the table. But you have to learn that that's just the things that you have to overcome just to do what you desire to do, right? I'm called to be a scientist. I'm called to be great at media. And that's what I want to do. I want to show other Black girls that actually you can have 2 careers that are equally as successful, right? You can't be limited. And it's just you have to compromise in having, maybe a social life so that you can achieve these 2 careers. But what I've learned is you can't be, like most people ask me, what's your passion? Do you love science or do you love radio? I said, no, I am good at both of them. I'm called to do both of them, but also to allow for new careers to be developed because there aren't science communicators. I can do that. I can simplify the science because I know how people consume media and how people consume information. But I still love the science. I still love being in a lab. I still love reading journals in the middle of the night, making sense of things that scare people. For me, it's a lot easier to comprehend. But you have to learn that in every industry, there is stepping stones, right? For me, working on Hartebeespoort Dam, where the dam is owned by the government, but the land around it is owned by people, I've had to learn that men will have to open the doors for me because those are the people that own the land, right? I have to convince them that what I'm doing is worthwhile, that my science is concrete. And now that they're seeing the results, I'm getting a lot more respect than I did when I started 2 years ago. There were times where I'd have to go to Hartebeespoort Dam just to have tea and coffee. Because when they expect you to come every Friday, whether you have work to do or not, they want to see you, So you think about, because I'm the first Black girl that they might allow on their property, I have to do everything excellently because if I get it wrong, then they won't allow the next Black girl. So you go into studying, you go into research with that. Okay, here I've gotten the opportunity. And if I mess it up, I close doors for other people. There's an added pressure on how well you have to perform, how kind you have to be, because you have to be kind and understanding, because men, whether educated or not, believe they know more than you. Right? So they know the system. They've lived around the dam. It is their dam. They know more about that dam than I do. And that's true. But I know the science. They don't necessarily understand the science. But you have to be patient enough to explain the science and also understand that they're passionate about what you're doing because its success is comfort for them. I mean, now they can use the dam again, right? They're enjoying canoeing, skiing, and sunset cruises, but you had to put in the hours. You have to be consistent and you have to be reliable. So when they call you, you pick up calls, you return all the calls, right? Because they also, now that their success, they want everybody else to know that they know you, which is amazing.
Part of the benefits there for you. That's a wonderful job. Sometimes we do drive there quite a lot with my family, and I noticed that, and it's just good to see the changes, that came into it and all that. But let's tie this all to your faith, your belief in Jesus, your belief in God. How has that played a role in you getting to where you are today? In you loving the things that you love, and in you really overcoming some of the challenges that you faced. How important is that relationship, and what do you do to keep that relationship going with him? Who is the most Christian here? Let's start from the
I don't know. Who could be the most Christian? There's no such thing.
I keep going first on everything, so I might as well keep the trend.
Yes.
Well, for me, my faith is my everything. I think my whole life actually is a testimony. If God wasn't on my side, I don't see how I would have overcame everything that I've overcame. Looking back, to where it all began, in that small town where you have a dream that is an impossible dream, and you see the dream just shaping up, and before you know it, it's fully fledged, and you are what you saw as a young child, that one day I want to be like this. For me, it's all praise to him. It wouldn't have happened. That's the one thing I've always known for sure, that it's my life is not mine. I'm a vessel. I find things opening up, things pushing back and pushing forward, and in my favor. Everything has always worked out in my favor. And I believe very strongly and very firmly that it is because I walk with somebody. I don't know, some people who don't believe in whatever you call it, a super being, whatever that you may call it. I find it strange that when people don't believe in that, because for my life specifically, I've seen that I couldn't have done it by myself. So it's very important. I pray. So everything I do, before I do anything, it's like, God, if this is your will, can it be done? And can I follow? Lead me where I need to go. And he has always led me. So that's the story of my life, that without God, it wouldn't have happened.
Dr. Puti, outside of playing with the church band to keep your nourishment and your relationship with Jesus going, what other things do you do? I know you were part of the Liberty Church in Randburg, I'm sure. Is that it? Yeah.
That's yeah. So
yeah.
I serve on the worship team, obviously, but I resonate with so many things that Dr. Spangile is saying. I think for me, it's important to speak to God, really just talk to him. And I think I would be dead without God. And for the bigger thing is, when God places a dream in your heart, he gives you the strength to fulfill that dream. And this PhD nearly killed me. I mean, last year was a movie. 2020 is something else, but 2019 was the movie for me. But for me, just reminding myself that God has given you this dream, and you need to push. And I've also had professional challenges, and one thing I've learned is you also don't need to share everything, because that will be part of your testimony when God tells you it's time. But there were a lot of things that I encountered, where the last 3 years I discovered the tears that I'd stored for the last 28 years. All of a sudden, they came out a lot. But for me, it was that thing where, you cry to God and you speak to God. And that has helped me a lot in terms of, the things I do, how I treat other people, the words I speak to other people, the things that come out of my mouth when I'm in front of a classroom, in my ministry as well, the anointing that God has placed on my life. A lot of it, all of it comes from a personal relationship with him. And it's not easy. Sorry, it is not easy, and especially because life will deal with you, you know. But for me, just seeing how God has been present in my life, even when if I think some of the things I've been through, if someone had to experience them, they'd just be like, no. And for me, just the presence of God in my life and understanding who God is, and having parents that pray for me, you know, especially probably more than I pray for myself, you know, that is really what has kept me through and what has helped me survive a lot of things, you know, that the ordinary person would not be able to. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
A lot of character building there. Kinowe?
So for me, I really take my relationship with God very personally. For this project, I said to him, Lord, if this is where you've called me, you're going to do for me what you haven't done for anybody on the system. You know, people avoided Hartis. I want you to do a big thing. And I know it's not me. So as soon as I saw the change on the dam, I was like, yo, you are really big. You know, like I could never do this without you. But even in the steps of me going around the dam, trying to introduce myself, I said a prayer, Lord, show me favor, go before me as I arrive. Let them be friendly, let them be kind, let them be willing to assist me, because destiny requires assistance, right? Let them be the people that you've called to help me with my destiny. And it's worked for me. You know, if before choosing this topic, I also prayed about it. I fasted for a while. And it was the January fast, the 40 days.
Yes.
So I did the January fast, and by March, I had gotten a supervisor who said, let me fly you to Rhodes. We will pay for everything. You know, it's because I trusted God for this. I said, God, I want this journey to start now, because I delayed it for years. And I said, guide me. If this is the right time, you won't let me sit on it, you know? And I felt that pressure in my spirit to, you've got to do this. You've got to do this. And that's what I think for us as women that believe in a God and believe in a Christ, that voice is a big thing in guiding us where to go. When you're feeling discouraged, it's, Lord, I know you've called me for this, right? Send me a word, you know, and like on a Wednesday service, you'll hear, be consistent with the mundane things, you know, because now you're already bored with doing the mundane things. You're bored with being the one that arrives every Friday, not seeing the change. But then a word comes, you know, the Lord wants you to concern yourself with the mundane things and be consistent with the mundane things. And the other thing is that as a child of God, you're called to be excellent. Like you can't be half-hearted about a thing. Whether you starting a bakery or you're going into science or you're going into music, you represent a God, right? So if I come to you and I speak about God and I'm underachieving and I'm mediocre, what kind of God do you think I serve? Because I can't misrepresent God. That's the one fear I have is misrepresenting God.
That's quite true. It's not the fact that we're Christians when we're in all these spaces and fields that counts. Is, do we showcase God's godly character? Do we showcase the excellence of God? Do we showcase the creativity of God? Do we showcase leadership from a godly perspective? People know. They don't have to be Christians to know that, when you showcase God's kind of leadership, it's different. There's a bit of compassion, there's a bit of direction, there's problem solving. And when you create something, there's excellence. They just know that this was created with so much excellence, not because you want to impress somebody, but because God is a God of excellence anyway. And I think for you guys, that's what you were called to do, especially being in the fields in the fields where you are. I tell people, like, Christians who are in different fields, that's your mission field. If that is your mission field, how are you going to be able to make sure you bring the gospel? Not necessarily bringing the gospel with the Bible. How are you going to take scriptures and break it down to make sense in your field, in what you do? because that is just so important, you know. And I really want to, you know, celebrate you guys for that. But just to go around, when are you getting your PhD? How old are you going to be then, Kenelwe?
Hopefully 37.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully
I turn 36 next year, so I'm supposed to finish at the end of the year. So hopefully when I wear the red gown, it'll be that year when I turn 37.
37. Okay, Dr. Puti, you got your PhD at what age?
30.
30. Oh, okay. That's really taking the bar higher. And Dr. Sibongile?
33.
33. Wow. That's so we should have actually said 35, you know, PhD before 35.
No, then I'd be left out.
No, we're going to fast track it. You're working really hard, so we're going to fast track it. So we're going to fast track it. But yeah, so, you know, thank you, ladies, you know, for just taking the time to be with me. Before we go, very importantly, I almost forgot that. You know, what's your relationship status? Are you married? Are you not married? As I'm sure a lot of people would say, yeah, you've been studying. You know the way we do it in Africa. You've been studying. Who's gonna marry you?
Yeah.
You know, studying. You don't have time for relationships. You know, but what's your aspirations around that?
Well, for me, it has taken me for a long time. I struggled to find the right one. You know, I was the one who was just kissing all the wrong frogs until recently. So yeah, recently I think I found the one. We're planning to get married, so you will see that invite coming up soon.
Wow! Congratulations!
Thank you. Thank you.
The best. Your kids are going to be professors. That's fine.
Yes.
Dr. Puti, you are 31 now, or is it you're not even 31 yet?
I turned 31 this year.
Okay. How is that coming? Are you still bidding or just waiting? I know from the kind of family you come from, you would have too much high standard.
They that wait on the Lord, Brother Solomon. They that wait on the Lord. I am waiting now. I think, you know, I love peace, and peace is priceless. And I know that when the Lord brings him, I'll have so much peace. So right now, there's no one that's bringing me peace, and I'm waiting on the Lord.
The peace that passes all understanding, you know, and that's just it. I mean, you don't look one bit like a drama person. So please, that peace should be there, because you're trying to create a home that you feel you're going to be comfortable with your personality, your character, the way that God created you, with the uniqueness, you know, and bringing in somebody who is totally different. You know, there should be a way that, you know, there's going to be synergy. They might be different, but they will have to understand you also, and the way God created you. And Kenelwe?
Well, I was with someone for 11 years. We broke it off last year. Yeah. Dating after 30, yes. It's a dirt pool, eh? There isn't a pool. There's not that many fish in the sea. It's a dirt pool. I'm currently seeing someone,
don't say that too much. Puti just turned 31. He's just early into the 30s.
I'm just saying, listen, Puti, wait. Don't rush. There's no need to rush. Wait. Okay? Because I think after 30, people have a lot more damage. So you need a lot more grace. You need a lot more. You need to forgive a lot. You need to communicate a lot. Remember, if I've been with somebody for 11 years, I know one person for 11 years. I kind of know how they work, you know, they know how I work. But now that we're apart, now I have to learn who this Kinelo is at 35. You know, how this Kinelo sees life is different from the 23-year-old that he met. And the person that I am today and my drive is completely different, right? So I have to still kind of figure out who I am completely when I finally enter into that, and I hope to get married. Because you find, you know, after 30, there's more, you're more friends than, you know, butterflies in the stomach. Butterflies count, but then there are things that you put on the table. You have to be vulnerable. And until you found somebody who can completely take you with your triggers and your traumas and understand what is important to you, and understand that on Wednesday you go to church, you know, and they understand it's concrete. That's my thing. I do it, you know, and they will never schedule a date night on a Wednesday because they respect those boundaries. Until I found somebody that's completely like that, I don't know. But somebody might find me, you know.
There's somebody that found you right here, actually. Somebody here, Maxi said, Kinewe is single. I'm single. Thank God. Glory.
Look at
You don't need to look too far. Solomon Stample would do the hookah.
you sorted me out.
No, but it would be, I think for me, for you guys, and what God has given you guys, not just educationally, but what God has given you guys as individuals, as women, it would be a disservice not to multiply it, you know, multiply it onto a man, you know, not to multiply it onto children. You know, it would be a disservice. I'm not saying you must get married or you must have kids. That's not the point. But, you know, I think that's one of the best ways to actually to multiply yourself, you know, and to be able to disciple, you know, if you can use a Christianese word, you know, to be able to disciple other people and to encourage them. So I really want to thank you. And I want to leave you with a scripture that I found very, very there to me in Proverbs 18:15. It says, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. You know, so there's like two places where knowledge was mentioned, but then also two different ways that you can actually acquire it. You know, from your heart, which is internally, to your ears, which is externally, and the two need to be able to be connected together. And you guys have shown that, you know, when it comes to acquiring education, you know, in the classroom. And I hope that, you know, through life, you would be able to exhibit that, and through your family life, through your work life, you know, you'll be able to do that and be leaders that could actually replicate yourself. So I really want to thank you guys so much for just taking the time to come here. There's a comment finally from Joanna. She said, well done, girls, you know, and just thanking you guys for that. And I know you are also, I was going to say that I forgot, Dr. Sibongile. I was going to say you're also involved with the Black Management Forum also. You're the chairperson for the Santon branch, or chairperson of a committee there?
Yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Pardon?
Tell us a little bit about that.
About the BMF. Oh, okay. So the BMF, we advocate for managerial development for Black people. So it started 40 years ago, when it was very difficult for Black people to be even called managers at the time. You were not allowed to be called managers. So
yeah,
it's come a long way.
Sorry, let me break it down. Dr. Puti, are we going to end up with some music, some piano from your side, your fingers going around?
I'll play something very brief.
Okay, please get ready, even if it's going to be 30 seconds. I want them to feel that you are actually really, you have a doctorate in musicology, you know, a PhD in musicology. Yes, Sibongile.
Yes. So yeah, so we advocate for that, for managerial development. We want to advocate for transformation at the workplace. Yeah, so we believe that transformation, as it's been happening so far, has been more of inclusion. You know, we've been asking to be included in corporate South Africa, and now we're saying that we no longer want to be included, we want to create our own things. So transformation has to move now from the BE type transformation. BMF is behind BE, by the way. They came up with it. They came up with affirmative action. It served a purpose at the time, because it was a time where it was important to be included in the economy, but now we don't want to be included anymore. We want to create new things now. So we need new policies. We welcome more people, Black people in particular, to come on board, and let's come up with ideas on how do we take this country forward economically, you know. And now we also just started another different organization called Women of South Africa. It's also advocating for women emancipation economically. So we're saying that the only way that this country will really take the shape that it needs to be taking is if women start taking center stage in everything that we do. We are 52% of the country. And also just the nature of women. We are naturers. You know, we tend to spend more our money in our families. We develop our children. So it just makes sense that if you have an economy that is not performing, where the majority of the population is not part of that economy, it explains why it's not performing. So if we want to change things, you need to put women where they belong, which is at the center of this economy. So all barriers to economic transformation and economic inclusion for women must be abolished. That's what this is a separate one now. You see, I'm always involved in these kind of things that are saying, let's fight for what is right and let's fight for people. That's just me.
Yeah, thank you very much on that. You know, and I'm sure people, if you Google their names, you can find out more about what they do and how to get involved, or just to be able to understand much more, you know, what really make them tick. All right, before we close, Dr. Puti.
Let me move my laptop. I'll play
so we just want to hear some music. Yeah.
Can you hear properly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play a hymn, you know, just to end off the evening. All right.
Yay.
Wow. That's yeah, we give you a round of applause, round of applause, round of applause. That's be still and know that I am God, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Finally, a note from Monica, you know, watching on YouTube. She said, this is such a lovely discussion and so inspiring. Thank you for sharing your stories, ladies. And thank you. You know, I really appreciate you guys one more time. And thank you so much. And all the best with what you're involved with. I hope I'm going to bring some of you guys back here, if you would allow me in future. Like people like Sibongile, when you want to talk about all this, let's do it, let's move, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, Kenewe, I've known you for quite a while now. You always get me into trouble. Yes, you always get me into trouble.
But I enjoy trouble. I mean, we need to break glass ceilings. How are we going to do it without trouble?
Exactly.
Exactly. Trouble is good. Trouble is good. There's good trouble. But thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. God bless you and all that you do.
Thank you so
much. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you so much to everyone watching. I really appreciate you. Don't forget, you can watch this video and other videos online. You just need to subscribe, Solomon's Temple on YouTube. And you're going to be able to get other videos that you might just find interesting, or you might just, you know, find something that you love. So thank you so much. Have a great night and God bless you.